Hey guys, tonight we're trading sword swings for scythes and longships for longhouses as we settle into the surprisingly peaceful daily life of a Viking farmer. Picture this. You're curled under a reindeer hide as the first gray light of dawn seeps through the smoke hole above. The air smells of last night's hearth embers. Part wood smoke, part dried fish, and just a hint of wet dog. That'd be Thorstein's prized herding hound snoring by your feet. Outside, a chorus of cattle bells clunks lazily in the frost. It's peaceful, almost too peaceful. Because let's be honest, you probably wouldn't last a week out here. Between backbreaking labor and a diet of fermented everything, modern comforts feel galaxies away. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're listening from and your local time. Nothing like imagining someone drifting off to Viking farming tales at 3 a.m. in Tokyo or high noon in Texas. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink awake to a symphony of snores. 8 other bodies are piled around the Longhouse's central hearth, their breath fogging in the cold. The fire's down to glowing coals, but Thora, the household's sharp-eyed matriarch, is already stirring a cauldron of water for morning whey. Your spine cracks like a ship's mast as you sit up. Forget rise and shine. More like rise and whimper. The dirt floor is frozen solid beneath your calloused feet, and let's just say Viking-era podiatry wasn't exactly a thriving science. Over by the cattle pen, young Bjorn yawns as he milks the family's prized cow. That creamy froth? Liquid gold. Vikings measured wealth in butter, not silver, a fact that makes your lactose-intolerant heart weep. Historians still argue whether those legendary butter mountains were real or just scalds being extra. But one thing's clear. If you botch the churning, you'll be eating regret for breakfast. And speaking of breakfast, Thora slops a wooden bowl of groucher into your hands. It's barley porridge again, lukewarm and lumpy as a fjord in January. But then she drops a knob of butter the size of a baby's fist on top, and suddenly you're Gordon Ramsay in the Valhalla VIP section. You scrape the bowl clean with your finger. Table manners can wait until the afterlife. Outside, the world is all mist and muted colors. The chickens peck at last night's fish bones, entirely unimpressed by your existence. A raven croaks from the roof, probably judging your farming skills. You grab your ard, that's your sad excuse for a plow, basically a stick with delusions of grandeur, and trudge toward the fields. The soil's still half frozen, crunching underfoot like nature's bubble wrap. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. It's going to be a long day. The morning sun barely cuts through the mist as you shuffle toward the storage pit, your breath puffing like a tiny, disgruntled dragon. Breakfast was adequate. That butter-laden porridge sits in your stomach like a happy little boulder, fueling you for the day ahead. But first, tools. Your iron-tipped ard leans against the longhouse wall, its wooden handle worn smooth by generations of your family's grip. It's a luxury item, really. Most farmers in the region still use all-wooden plows, which snap if you so much as glare at a stubborn root. Historians still argue whether Vikings invented the stink eye specifically for dealing with uncooperative farming equipment. You heft the ard over your shoulder, its weight familiar against your wool-clad back. Beside it hangs a curved sickle, its edge gleaming dully in the weak light. This is your breadwinner, literally. One bad harvest and you're eating boiled seaweed until spring. No pressure. A rhythmic thunk-thunk-thunk pulls your attention to the workbench. Old Grimmer is there, hammering out a new iron hoe head. Sparks fly as he works, each strike sending a metallic ping echoing across the yard. You nod in greeting and he grunts in return, the universal Viking farmer good morning. No small talk needed. There's work to do. You pause by the animal pen, where your 2 oxen, aptly named Stubborn and Stubborner, chew their cud with the vacant expressions of creatures who know their importance. Without them, plowing would be, well, impossible. You scratch Stubborn's broad forehead, and he blinks at you with eyelashes so long they'd make a Frankish princess jealous. The toolshed smells of earth and iron and old leather. Your whetstone sits waiting on its shelf, next to a half-finished birchwood bucket. You'll get to that Eventually. For now, you test the ard's iron tip with your thumb. Still sharp enough. Probably. As you turn to leave, your foot kicks something in the straw. A child's carved wooden horse, forgotten in yesterday's play. You set it carefully on a high shelf out of the way. Later, little Astrid will come looking for it with those big, accusing eyes that make you feel guilty for things you didn't even do. The field calls. The oxen low. The raven watches. Another day begins. The oxen snort impatiently as you fasten their wooden yoke, their hot breath fogging in the crisp morning air. Stubborn flicks an ear at a persistent fly while Stubborner takes the opportunity to step squarely on your foot. His idea of a friendly greeting. You bite back a curse that would make a seasoned sailor blush. No one warned you Viking farming involved so much stepping. The field stretches before you, its uneven surface dotted with stubborn rocks that seem to multiply overnight. Some say trolls plant them under moonlight. Right now, you're inclined to believe it. You adjust the ard's angle, positioning the iron tip just so. Too shallow, and it'll skip uselessly over the soil. Too deep, and you'll be wrestling with clods all morning. A sharp whistle cuts through the quiet. Down the slope, your neighbor Egil gives a lazy wave, already halfway through his own furrow. His plow lines are straighter than yours, a fact he'll no doubt mention at the next feast. You respond with a grunt and a vague hand motion that could mean anything from looking good to, I hope your barley gets weevils. Viking passive aggression is an art form. The first pass is always the hardest. The ard bites into the earth with a satisfying crunch, sending up the rich, loamy scent of turned soil. Behind you, the oxen lean into their harnesses with resigned determination. Their rhythmic plodding sets the pace. Slow, steady, inevitable. Left foot, right foot, breathe. The repetitive motion is almost meditative, if you ignore the sweat trickling down your back and the growing protest of your shoulders. Halfway through the third row, your ard snags on something unyielding. You curse, quietly, lest the gods take offense, and kneel to investigate. Not a rock, but a twisted piece of iron. Someone's broken spearhead, perhaps, lost in some long-ago scuffle. Historians still argue whether finds like these were accidental losses or deliberate offerings to the land spirits. You pocket it anyway. Waste not, want not. By midday, your hands are blistered beneath their leather wraps, and your lower back has developed opinions it's eager to share. The sun, now fully awake, beats down with surprising intensity for what's supposed to be the edge of the known world. You pause to wipe your brow, squinting at the crooked but serviceable furrows behind you. Not bad. Not Egil level, but not bad. Stubborn chooses this moment to relieve himself with shocking volume, because of course he does. The raven perched on a nearby fence post cause what sounds suspiciously like laughter. You sigh, adjust your grip, and get back to work. The field won't plow itself. The midday sun hangs heavy as you trudge back toward the Longhouse, your stomach growling louder than a bear fresh out of hibernation. Plowing is hungry work, and that meager breakfast seems like a distant memory. But before you can eat, there's the small matter of the sheep. Those fluffy, dim-witted land sharks that somehow underpin your entire livelihood. You spot them clustered near the far fence, their stupidly adorable faces buried in grass. At first glance, they're the picture of pastoral serenity. Then you notice the gap in the fence. Of course, the one time they could have wandered toward greener pastures, they chose to mill about like woolly philosophers debating the meaning of life. As you approach, the lead-you, a battle-scarred matriarch missing half an ear, lifts her head and blinks at you with all the intelligence of a mossy rock. Historians still argue whether Viking sheep were deliberately bred to be this dense or if it was just a happy accident. You swing the gate open with more force than necessary, and the flock shuffles through in a cloud of dust and discontented bleating. Inside the pen, you do a quick head count. All present, including that one lamb who keeps trying to nurse from the wrong mother. The ewes tolerate this with the weary resignation of creatures who've birthed too many offspring to care about personal boundaries. You check their water trough, full, and salt lick, still mysteriously terrifying to them. Then pause to scratch the ram between his nubby horns. He leans into it like an overgrown dog, nearly knocking you over in the process. A sudden commotion at the fence line makes you turn. Little Astrid has arrived, her arms full of freshly cut greens. The sheep mob her instantly, their earlier indifference replaced by ravenous enthusiasm. She giggles as they nudge at her skirts, their blunt teeth tugging at the foliage. You should probably intervene. Those greens were meant for tonight's stew. But the sight of her joy stays your hand. Let the sheep have their moment. As you turn to leave, your foot sinks into something warm and suspiciously squishy. Right? The other constant of sheep farming. You scrape your boot against a rock, making a mental note to check the tannery later for that new pair of shoes you've been saving for. The smell of roasting fish wafts from the Longhouse, pulling you toward lunch like a siren's call. The sheep barely notice your departure, too busy committing vegetable theft. Somewhere overhead, that same raven circles, no doubt taking notes for his next sarcastic commentary. The afternoon sun slants across the fields as you settle onto a mossy rock, your body grateful for this small mercy. Lunch was a hurried affair. Smoked fish, dense rye bread, and a swig of buttermilk so tart it made your eyes water. Now, with your belly full and your plowing done, you allow yourself a moment of stillness. The Viking farmer's equivalent of a spa day, sitting in dirt while insects buzz around your head. You peel off your sweat-damp tunic, letting the breeze cool your skin. Somewhere in the distance, a cuckoo calls, nature's way of reminding you that time is passing, and you should probably be doing something productive. But the sun is warm, the rock is smooth, and your eyelids feel suspiciously heavy. Just as you're about to drift off, a shadow falls across your face. You crack one eye open to find old Arnkel looming over you, his bushy eyebrows knitted in disapproval. "Sleeping?" he grunts, poking your shoulder with his walking stick. The fence won't mend itself. You groan inwardly. The fence. That sagging, splintered monstrosity at the far end of the barley field. The one the goats treat as more of a suggestion than a boundary. Historians still argue whether Viking-era goats were naturally rebellious or if they simply enjoyed watching humans suffer. The repair pile waits where you left it yesterday, a tangle of hazel withes and rough-cut planks. You select a likely branch and set to work, your knife biting into the green wood with satisfying precision. Weaving the flexible shoots between the upright posts is mindless work, the rhythm of it lulling you into a trance. Over, under, twist. Over, under, twist. A sudden snort breaks your concentration. One of the goats, a shaggy brown menace with mismatched horns, has appeared as if by magic. It watches you with unsettling intelligence, its rectangular pupils tracking every movement. You swear it's judging your technique. "Shoo!" you mutter, waving a hazel switch at it. The goat blinks slowly, unmoved. When you turn back to your work, it casually leans over and takes a bite of your unfinished section. You sigh. This is why the sagas never mention fence-mending. No one wants to hear about the 1,000 tiny battles lost to livestock. The sun dips lower as you work, your hands growing rough with sap and splinters. Somewhere beyond the fields, the sea glitters, calling to the adventurer's heart you supposedly possess. But for now, there's just you, the fence, and the smug satisfaction of a goat who knows she's won. The rhythmic thunk-thunk of the cornstone greets you as you duck into the Longhouse's dim interior. Thora and her daughters kneel around the grinding slab, their hands moving in practiced unison as they crush barley into flour. The sound is constant, almost hypnotic, the heartbeat of Viking domestic life. You pause in the doorway, letting your eyes adjust. Dust motes dance in the shafts of sunlight sneaking through the smoke vents. The air smells of warm grain and crushed herbs, with an underlying note of wet wool drying by the fire. It's a comforting smell, though your modern nose would probably call it, "Oh, to sweaty farmer." "Don't just stand there," Thora says without looking up. Her knuckles are white around the handstone, her shoulders rolling with each grinding pass. Either help or go scrape the butter churn. You wisely choose the butter churn. The churn squatting in the corner looks innocent enough, just a wooden barrel with a plunger sticking out the top. But you know better. This is your nemesis, your white whale, or rather, your yellow butter. You roll up your sleeves and grip the plunger, bracing for battle. The first few plunges are easy. The cream sloshes pleasantly, the motion almost therapeutic. Then the resistance starts. Your arms burn as you fight the thickening mixture, the once liquid cream now clinging to the plunger like Viking glue. A droplet flies free and lands on your forehead. You let it stay there, a badge of honor. Historians still argue whether Viking buttermaking was a chore or a form of punishment. The sagas never mention how many warriors abandoned raids in favor of churning. Probably for the best. Across the room, little Astrid giggles as she shapes dough into crude animal figures. Her fingers leave tiny fingerprints in the soft mass, future bread that will mysteriously taste better than the perfectly round loaves. You watch as she proudly presents a lopsided goat to her mother, who nods solemnly before tossing it into the baking pit with the rest. Your plunger hits sudden resistance, then thunks against something solid. Victory. You peer into the churn at the golden lump bobbing in buttermilk. It's smaller than you'd hoped, but it'll do. As you scoop it out, Thora sidles over and pinches off a chunk, popping it into her mouth with a satisfied hum. Not bad, she concedes. High praise. Outside, the sun dips toward the horizon, painting the longhouse in amber light. The smell of baking bread mixes with wood smoke, creating a perfume no modern candle could replicate. Your stomach growls, but there's satisfaction in the hunger, the knowledge that every ache in your arms will soon be rewarded with food you helped create. The raven lands on the roof with a loud caw, no doubt hoping for scraps. You flick a bit of butter at it because even Vikings deserve small rebellions. The evening air carries the scent of burning juniper as you haul the last water bucket from the well. Your shoulders protest, each lift a reminder of the day's labors. But the sight of the setting sun painting the fjord in molten gold makes the chore almost bearable. Almost. Inside the longhouse, the evening bustle reaches its peak. Children dodge between adults' legs, their laughter bouncing off the low ceiling. Someone's hung a fresh bundle of herbs from the rafters, their pungent aroma mixing with wood smoke and the ever-present tang of drying fish. You sidestep a bubbling cauldron of stew, tonight's menu, mystery meat with questionable vegetables, and nearly trip over Grimmer's sleeping hound. The dog doesn't even twitch. Your bedroll calls to you like a siren song. But first, the nightly ritual. You reach for the small wooden box tucked beside your sleeping space. Inside rests your most prized possession, a sliver of soap traded from a traveling merchant. It smells faintly of pine and sheep fat, but after a day in the fields, it might as well be Frankish perfume. The washing bowl sits near the door, its surface scarred from years of use. You pour in a careful measure of water, hauled from the well so every drop counts, and work the soap into a feeble lather. The water turns gray almost immediately. Historians still argue whether Vikings bathed weekly or monthly, but right now you're just grateful no one's keeping track. As you scrub at your grime-streaked arms, young Olaf wanders over, his nose wrinkled. "You smell like a wet goat," he announces helpfully. "Thank you," you deadpan, flicking soapy water at him. He dodges with the agility of youth, disappearing into the smoky haze before you can retaliate. Clean-ish, you finally collapse onto your bedroll. The reindeer hide scratches at your freshly washed skin, but you're too tired to care. Around you, the longhouse settles into its nighttime rhythm. The crackle of the fire, soft murmurs of conversation, the occasional snore from someone who started drinking early. Outside, an owl calls. The sound mingles with the distant rush of the stream where you'll fish tomorrow. Your eyelids grow heavy, but just before sleep claims you, a thought drifts through your mind. Somewhere out there, a skald is probably composing an epic about warriors and dragons. Meanwhile, the real Viking heroes are the ones who survive another day of farming. Dawn comes too soon. The first rays of sunlight slant through the smoke holes, painting stripes across the still sleeping forms in the longhouse. You blink awake to the familiar symphony of snores and the less familiar sensation of something small and hard poking your ribs. A quick investigation reveals a carved wooden toy ship, likely little Eirik's latest treasure, lost in yesterday's adventures. You sit up slowly, joints creaking like an old fishing boat. Yesterday's plowing left its mark on your muscles, and the dirt floor did your back no favors. Somewhere in the back of your mind, You recall a skald's tale about soft feather beds in Miklagard. You make a mental note to mock the next poet who romanticizes the simple farming life. The hearth fire burns low, its embers still glowing faintly. Thora is already there, poking at the coals with the practiced indifference of someone who's done this every morning for 30 years. She nods at you, the Viking equivalent of good morning, and gestures to the water bucket. Message received. Tea won't make itself. You grab the bucket and step outside, where the world is painted in frost and silence. Your breath hangs in the air as you trudge toward the stream, the grass crunching underfoot. The water's surface shimmers with a thin layer of ice. Nature's way of saying good luck with that. You break through with the bucket's edge, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness. Back inside, the water goes into the iron kettle along with a handful of dried herbs. The mixture smells like a forest floor and tastes like someone's idea of medicine, but it's warm and wet, which is all anyone really needs at this hour. Historians still argue whether Viking tea was actually enjoyable or just a form of masochism. As the brew steeps, you survey the Longhouse's waking routine. Children rub sleep from their eyes while adults perform the same morning rituals as always. Checking tools, tying boots, muttering about the weather. It's comforting in its predictability. Outside, the rooster finally announces the sun's arrival, his crowing slightly off-key as usual. You sip your tea, wincing at the bitterness. Another day begins. The morning mist clings to the fields as you inspect yesterday's plowing work. The furrows stretch before you, their uneven lines a testament to stubborn soil and even more stubborn oxen. You kneel, letting the damp earth sift through your fingers. Good soil, not perfect, but good enough. The ancestors would approve. A rustling in the nearby bushes draws your attention. A hare freezes mid-chew, its nose twitching as it assesses the threat level. You stay perfectly still, caught in this quiet moment between human and wild. Then stubborn lows loudly from the pen, and the spell breaks. The hare vanishes in a blur of brown, leaving only trembling grass in its wake. You sigh and stand, brushing dirt from your knees. Time to sow. The seed pouch at your waist holds this year's hope, barley mostly with some oats mixed in. You take a handful and begin walking the rows, scattering grains with the practiced flick of wrist that took 3 seasons to master. Too thick and the plants will choke each other. Too thin and the birds will feast at your expense. The work is meditative. Step, scatter, step, scatter. The rhythm syncs with your breathing until you're moving without thought. Around you, the world wakes. Bees hum in the meadow beyond the field. A hawk circles overhead, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barks at nothing in particular. Historians still argue whether Viking farmers sang while they worked. Right now, you're too focused to hum, but you can't help noticing how your footsteps almost match the beat of Thora's cornstone from the Longhouse. Maybe there's music in routine after all. A shadow falls across your path. You look up to see Astrid standing there, her small hands cupped around something precious. For the soil, she says solemnly, opening her palms to reveal a handful of crushed eggshells. You don't ask where she got them. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Together, you sprinkle the shells along the next row, a tiny offering to the earth. The morning sun warms your backs as you work, and for a moment, everything feels exactly as it should be. The midday sun beats down as you wipe sweat from your brow, your scythe resting against your shoulder. The first hay cutting of the season lies in neat rows behind you, drying in the heat. It's backbreaking work, but there's satisfaction in seeing the fruits, or rather grasses, of your labor. You straighten with a groan, pressing your hands into the small of your back. Every muscle protests, but the view makes up for it. The freshly cut field stretches toward the tree line, its golden stubble contrasting with the lush green of the untouched meadow beyond. A light breeze carries the scent of cut grass and distant saltwater. Movement catches your eye near the forest edge. A fox pauses at the tree line, its russet coat gleaming in the sunlight. It watches you with cautious curiosity before vanishing into the underbrush. You make a mental note to check the chicken coop later. The sharpening stone waits in the grass where you left it. You spit on the blade, no fancy oil for farmers, and begin working the stone along the edge in smooth, practiced strokes. The rhythmic scraping mixes with the buzz of insects and the distant chatter of children playing near the stream. Historians still argue whether Viking farmers preferred straight or curved scythe blades. Right now, you'd prefer one that sharpened itself. Shadow falls across your work. Old Arnkel stands there, leaning on his staff. He eyes your blade critically before grunting. High praise from him. "Storm coming," he says, nodding toward the western horizon where dark clouds gather. You squint at the sky. He's right, of course. Arnkel's bones predict weather better than any seer's runes. The hay will need turning before the rain hits. As if on cue, thunder rumbles in the distance. The children by the stream shriek with delight and begin gathering their things. You sigh and get to your feet. No rest for the weary, but then, no Viking ever complained about having too much hay. The first raindrops hit as you're stacking the last of the hay bales under the shelter. The thatched roof leaks in 3 predictable places, but it's better than nothing. You watch as the storm rolls in across the fjord, the water's surface turning from glassy calm to white-capped chaos in minutes. Inside the Longhouse, the atmosphere shifts with the weather. Children cluster near the hearth, their usual boisterous energy muted by the thunder. Thora stirs a pot of something that smells suspiciously like yesterday's stew with extra onions. The smoke from the fire curls lazily upward, escaping through the roof vents in wisps. You settle onto your usual bench, reaching for the mending basket. A pile of torn tunics and frayed socks glares at you accusingly. The needle feels clumsy in your work-roughened fingers, but the rhythm of stitching soon becomes automatic. Push, pull, repeat. Outside, the rain drums a steady beat on the roof. Grimmer starts a story by the fire, his voice rising and falling with the storm's intensity. It's an old tale about Thor fishing for the world serpent, complete with sound effects and dramatic pauses. The children's eyes grow wide when he imitates the thunder god's roar. You smile around a mouthful of thread. Grimmer missed his calling as a skald. Historians still argue whether Viking farmers enjoyed stormy days or resented the forced downtime. Right now, with your hands busy and your belly full, you're leaning toward enjoyment. A particularly loud thunderclap shakes the Longhouse. The hound by the door lifts his head, decides it's not worth barking at, and goes back to sleep. Little Astrid takes this as her cue to climb into your lap, her small hands clutching a half-finished braid of straw. "Teach me?" she asks, holding up the messy attempt. You set aside your mending and guide her fingers through the motions. Over, under, through. The storm rages outside, but here by the fire, time slows. The needle can wait. Morning arrives crisp and clear, the storm having washed the world clean. You step outside and inhale deeply. The air smells of wet earth and new grass, with a hint of seaweed from the distant shore. Perfect weather for fishing. The stream burbles happily as you approach, its water swollen from last night's rain. Your fishing gear, a simple spear and woven basket, waits where you left it under the alder tree. You roll up your trousers and wade in, the cold water biting at your ankles. A shadow darts beneath the surface. You freeze, spear poised. The trout glides through the shallows, its speckled sides flashing in the sunlight. You hold your breath and strike. The spear comes up empty. The fish, now thoroughly offended, disappears into deeper water. You sigh. This is why the sagas never mention the fishing skills of great warriors. Further downstream, young Olaf whoops as he lands a decent-sized catch. He grins at you, all missing teeth in triumph. You respond with a gesture that's definitely not historically accurate but gets the point across. Historians still argue whether Viking fishing methods were sport or survival. Right now, with your stomach growling, you're firmly in the survival camp. By midday, your basket holds 3 small trout and your dignity. It's not a king's feast, but it'll do. As you pack up, you notice the watercress growing along the bank. A lucky find. You gather a handful, the peppery greens a perfect complement to tonight's fish. The walk back to the Longhouse is peaceful. Birds sing in the newly washed trees, and the sun warms your back. Somewhere in the distance, a cow bellows. Home calls. The setting sun paints the Longhouse golden as you lug the milk pail inside. Evening chores done, you're ready for rest. But the gods have other plans. A commotion at the gate announces visitors. Your cousin Bjorn and his family, their cart piled high with household goods. Surprise! He booms, clapping you on the back hard enough to rattle teeth. We're staying the winter. You blink. The Longhouse is already crowded, but hospitality laws are clear. You force a smile and help unload the cart while Thora sizes up their provisions with a practiced eye. The children, yours and theirs, immediately dissolve into a game of tag that involves far more shrieking than necessary. Inside, space is made. Bedrolls shift, benches squeeze closer together, and suddenly your quiet evening becomes a boisterous gathering. Bjorn produces a skin of something strong-smelling and begins pouring. The drink burns going down, but it does wonders for your fake smile. Historians still argue whether Viking hospitality was genuine or just fear of bad poetry being written about them. As Bjorn launches into his third story about that time he almost fought a bear, you're leaning toward the latter. The noise level rises as the night progresses. Someone starts a song, others join in, and before long the Longhouse shakes with off-key singing and stomping feet. Even the dogs join in, howling at the rafters. You catch Thora's eye across the fire. She rolls hers dramatically, but there's a smile tugging at her lips. You raise your cup in silent toast to surviving the winter ahead, one day at a time. Frost paints intricate patterns on the Longhouse door when you push it open. Winter has arrived in earnest overnight, transforming the world into a glittering, silent wonderland. Your breath hangs in the air as you survey the snow-draped landscape. Beautiful, if you ignore the fact you'll be shoveling paths all morning. The animals are restless in their pens, their warm breath creating little clouds above the shelters. You break the ice on their water troughs, your fingers burning with cold. The goats complain loudly about the weather, as if it's your fault. Breakfast is a hurried affair. Leftover porridge reheated with some precious honey stirred in. The sweetness is a rare treat, and you savor each bite while watching the children play in the snow outside. Their laughter echoes across the frozen yard as they tumble and roll, their cheeks pink with cold. Day's work is different in winter. No fields to tend, but endless maintenance. Tool repairs, leatherworking, the constant battle against drafts sneaking through the walls. You settle by the fire with a bundle of reeds, your fingers weaving them into thatch repairs for the sheep pen. The rhythmic work is soothing, the fire's warmth a luxury your summer self would envy. Historians still argue whether Viking winters were times of rest or relentless indoor labor. As your needle pricks your thumb for the third time, you have your answer. Outside, the sun struggles to make an impact on the frosty world. The raven lands on the fence post, fluffing its feathers against the cold. You toss it a crust of bread, a small offering to the gods of not freezing to death. The longest night of the year settles over the farm like a heavy blanket. Outside, the snow glows faintly under a star-strewn sky, while inside the Longhouse, the Yule log burns bright in the hearth. Its light flickers across the faces of your gathered family, some by blood, others by circumstance, all drawn close against the winter's bite. You lean back against a post, your belly full of roast pork and spiced ale. The children have finally collapsed in a heap of worn-out joy, their fingers still sticky from honey treats. Bjorn snores loudly by the fire, one arm draped over a sleeping hound. Even Thora seems relaxed, her usual sharp edges softened by the firelight and good company. The year's cycle feels complete in this moment. The seeds you planted have been harvested, the hay stored, the animals sheltered. The wheel will turn again soon enough. Plowing, sowing, reaping, but for now, there's just this quiet space between breaths. Historians still argue about what Vikings dreamed of on winter nights. As your eyelids grow heavy, you think it might have been this simple. Warmth, plenty, and the people who make the struggle worthwhile. Outside, the northern lights dance across the sky, their green ribbons reflected in the snow. Somewhere beyond the farm, wolves howl, a sound that would normally set your teeth on edge. Tonight, it's just part of the music. You pull your cloak tighter and let the fire's crackle lull you towards sleep. Morning will come soon enough with its chores and challenges. But for now, rest. The fire burns low now, its embers pulsing like a sleepy heartbeat. The longhouse creaks softly as it settles for the night, the sounds of breathing and occasional snores weaving into a familiar lullaby. Outside, the world holds its breath. Snow-laden branches, frozen streams, all waiting for the sun's return. You drift in that hazy space between waking and dreaming, where memories of the day blend with older stories. The scent of pine smoke and damp wool wraps around you like a second cloak. Somewhere beyond these walls, the raven roosts, the foxes hunt, the sea crashes against distant shores. But here, in this moment, all is still. The year has asked much of you. Your hands, your back, your patience. It has given in return. Full bellies, sturdy walls, laughter around the fire. The balance feels right. As sleep finally claims you, the last conscious thought slips away like a boat from shore. Spring will come. The earth will wake. The work will begin anew. But tonight you rest.